Hello and welcome to this latest edition of Behind the Tapes, produced by TigersPLUS for TigersPLUS members, and at this time, of course, of social distancing and the lack of live Speedway, shared more widely to the Glasgow Speedway support and beyond. Sincerely hope that you and your families are keeping safe and well during these challenging times. Avid viewers of Behind the Tapes, and we do have a few, will know that we tend to speak to Glasgow Speedway connected riders, past and present. James Greaves, Shane Parker, Ricky Wells, 𝗙𝗲𝗁𝗲𝗏, Kyle Bickley, Anders Thompson have interviewed in recent weeks, all available to watch again via the video section of the TigersPLUS Facebook page. Tonight, however, we're going to step off track, and I am delighted to be able to pin down a man that all Glasgow fans will clearly want to hear from, and I suspect fans of a number of other clubs too. Peter Facenna. Good evening, Peter. Thanks for joining us on Behind the Tapes. How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Not too bad, Peter. Listen, I hesitated from using your title there because I'm never quite sure what to call you these days, apart from boss man and all that good stuff. What's your official title?
I don't know if I've really got one at Speedway, to be fair. So I'm not really huge in titles. So just I don't know. Jack of all trades, master of none.
I'll just call you Peter then. Just call you Peter. Peter, listen, thanks for giving up some time to join us, and we're going to talk, of course, about Speedway during the course of this interview. But before we do, COVID has hugely impacted commerce and disrupted business all over the globe. And you are managing director of a successful business concern in Glasgow, the one that, of course, that basically supports Glasgow Speedway, the Allied Group. Can you give us a little insight into the impact of COVID on the Allied Group, please?
Well, it was fairly severe to start with, to be fair. I think at the end of March we closed like everyone else. We kept a couple of departments open because we maintain emergency service vehicles, but at one stage we had something like 630 people on furlough, and that remained for the first few weeks, and gradually we've been able to bring more and more people back. So I think we're down to about just over 200 people that are furloughed. But it's definitely a challenging time for our business. It's a challenging time for a lot of businesses. Some of our markets are bounced back fairly strong in terms of for wheelchair accessible vehicles, because the way that's funded through the Motability scheme, it tends to be less impacted by any economic downturn. But conversely, our taxi market is basically falling off a cliff at the moment, because clearly people aren't getting out and about yet. So it's quite tough. Our challenge now is to focus on making sure that we can keep as many of the jobs as we can when we bring people back. It looks unlikely that we will not have to make some sort of cuts, unfortunately, but I think that'll be vastly wide across all industries. I think you're only seeing the tip of the iceberg at the moment, unfortunately, just with the furlough scheme that's in place. You're seeing it in the news every day, businesses making more and more redundancies. But I think as each stage of the employer liability to furlough kicks in between August and September and October, where you have to start contributing, I think there'll be quite a lot of redundancies coming about. But yeah, so things are going okay. Things are good. We've bounced back okay from where we were at the end of March, certainly.
Thank you, Peter. Challenging times indeed for business. Challenging times for Speedway. Let's turn attention to that. And the first thing I was going to ask you actually was, had things gone to plan this year, we would have been in the middle of the Speedway season. Speedway, supposedly, Peter, your medium of relaxation and a bit of enjoyment. Have you missed that engagement this year?
Sometimes, yeah, no, I do miss it. I have missed it. Don't get me wrong. It's been, whilst we've been through the challenging time in the business, it's been a welcome break from it, if you like, so that the family can put all their attention into the business at the moment. But yeah, you do miss it. Of course, you miss it. We enjoy it. We enjoy the away trips and enjoy the buzz of it, enjoy the competitiveness of it. So absolutely, it has been missed.
Thank you. I wanted to talk, before we talk about 2020, as would have been, and we'll talk about 2021 as well. We'll look ahead positively. 2019, I just wanted to, it's been a good number of months, remarkably almost 9 months since that grand final occasion back in Ashfield in October. I just wanted to capture your thoughts all these months on and reflections on 2019. It wasn't all about the grand final, of course.
No, I mean, it was a great season. It was great fun. You know, we had some great victories on the road, where places where, you know, even in the 5 years we've been involved consistently, we'd go and get pumped. So it was nice to get some victories at some places where we've not seen those victories before. You know, we did well. We got to the final. Unfortunately, we just came up short, as everyone knows. Winning the pairs was a great highlight as well. And you know, for us, it was a real special bond last year between the kind of the fans and the management and the riders, which was the best certainly in my time at the club that we've seen it. So all in, it was a good season. You know, obviously we don't hide the fact that we want to finish on that top step. Everyone knows that, but it's not just about that. You know, it's about growing the fan base. It's about enjoying it. It's about, you know, being successful on and off the track. So all in all, it was a good season, a really good season.
And always, Peter, as ever, I would imagine year on year, there's always learnings to take from successes and failures. And I guess 2019 was no different. Did we see any of that manifest in the team building strategy for 2020?
Look, I think so. I mean, when we looked at it, you know, we certainly in our time at the club, and you know, when Stuart was picking the team, and then even laterally, we've always been kind of top heavy, if you like. We've always had kind of a weaker bottom end. That's not to take anything away from Connor and Kyle, but you know, when you look at the races that we won, generally speaking, we'd win more races than we'd lose. You know, through our kind of top guys. But then, unfortunately, we had too many last places. So when we looked at this year, we said, well, let's make sure that we've always got, you know, one really strong reserve. You know, if you look at Workington the previous year, you know, right through that whole season, they always had a top rider at reserve, and you know, they obviously won the treble. They won everything from doing that. So we looked at that and said, you know, let's have a look at the team and what do we want to do. Obviously, we wanted to have Craig back as your talisman. You know, and it's great having that confidence that, you know, when you go to any meeting, home or away, that you're in with a chance of winning Heat 1, and you're certainly in with a chance of winning Heat 13 and Heat 15 anywhere. Whereas we've never really had that, certainly in my time at the club, we've not had that. So he takes up a lot of the points, so then it's just the usual jigsaw of fitting everyone else in thereafter.
And you'll have sat down, of course, with Cammy Brown, team manager, amongst others, to piece together the makeup of the squad for 2020, and I know you got to, frustratingly or otherwise, you got to sit down and talk to those guys and get to know them a little bit back in March at the boot camp. Was there a confidence behind the scenes that we'd got the mix that bit better this year?
Absolutely. You know, I think we had a really good boot camp. It was tough. You know, everyone was pretty knackered, myself included, by the end of it. But no, all the guys got on really well, and I think we did have a good mix of kind of youth and up and coming riders and experienced riders as well. So, you know, I was really looking forward to what we could do. You know, there's guys that are in our team that have been there and done it, and their average has been much higher than what it is now. And equally, there's guys that are, you know, young guys that are on the way up. So, yeah, no, I think we got the blend right, and you know, we were very much looking forward to seeing how we delivered on the track.
And of course, you had pieced together the team. You had the boot camp back in March. You had met with supporters at the end of March, and then the whole world, Speedway included, was put on pause. Of course, frustratingly so. Of course, you know, we all wanted and looked forward to a brand new Speedway season. With hindsight, though, would it have been more frustrating had the season started and then had to stop?
Yeah, I think so, especially if you started off well and then you had to stop, you know, if you won a few fixtures or whatever. So I think it was better that it was stopped when it was, or it didn't go ahead, it didn't start, if you like, than starting and stopping, especially for some of the guys that were travelling from other parts of the world to start. So yeah, it was obviously a sad thing that it had to stop, but as you say, there's much bigger things going on in the world then, as there still is now.
Trying to put yourself back in your own sort of headspace back at that time, Peter, end of March, April, the COVID thing was beginning to emerge. I think the country was put on lockdown 23rd of March, nationally, if I remember correctly. You, of course, will have had, you know, your mind on Allied as a business concern and all the things that you were facing there. Would the Speedway have been a bit of a distraction to you at that time? Was it almost a relief that Speedway season faltered, didn't get off the starting blocks?
I wouldn't say it was a relief, but for us, we obviously made the decision reasonably quickly that once we saw what was coming, after a few weeks after then, because for us, in Allied, you've been to Allied, it's a reasonable sized place. For all the social distancing measures we had to put in, I mean, everyone knows Gio, so Gio spent a lot of time with 6 of his colleagues in facilities, spent 6 weeks making the business ready for people going back, and it's things like toilets, we had to put in several different doorways of toilets, we had to do the social distancing, we had to do the perspex around the desks. It was all that, to think that we'd have to then go and do that in Speedway, because even then it was fairly obvious to me that this was going to be around for a good while, in terms of when social distancing would ultimately end or reduce. I know we've reduced it slightly in England. So for us it was just going to be a bit of a challenge, and it was the unknown, and we've got paid staff that we wanted to kind of give a steer either way to say, well, do you think it's going to happen or not, rather than them being kind of in limbo. I know a lot of tracks it's volunteers, but we do have employed staff in the catering section, certainly. So for us, we just wanted to make a decision very, very quickly and just say, listen, it's not going to happen for us. Let's move on and focus on the following year, and then that certainly allowed us to put all our focus and attention into the business.
And we'll come to that decision in just a second. But presumably April, May time, Glasgow were actively engaged in discussions with BSPA in various forums, talking about what the art of the possible, I guess, in 2020, and forming a consensus about hopefully getting things underway at some point.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I'm not a promoter, so it's Alan really that communicates with the board. I had a few chats with Stuart at the time as well, just to see what the thoughts were myself. But for us, it was just, obviously Scotland was slightly different, or still is slightly different from the rest of the UK in terms of the timeline that we were on, and for us it was just too much unknown about when it could start, what it would look like, what riders were going to be there. So that was kind of the reason why we decided to make our decision on what we were doing.
And to that club statement, 1st of June, if I remember correctly, Glasgow declared their hand really, and withdrew from all considerations about racing in 2020. Public reaction to that, amongst the Glasgow support, I personally didn't see any dissenting voices. Frustration and disappointment, of course, but by and large, people supported that, Peter.
I think so. The vast majority supported it. I think there was a couple of comments saying, it's too early, why don't you wait and see? But I think the vast majority of people supported it, because the other thing is, as I said in the statement, I'm sure a lot of our fans are at that kind of vulnerable, at-risk category, and how much confidence will they have coming back to places that are busy, full of people, even if they're allowed to. And as I said, 10 minutes ago, I think the way the economy is going to be going, I'm not sure that Speedway will be a #1 priority for a lot of people, because sadly a lot of people are going to be unemployed, much more than are just now. So it was all of those things really, and that's what kind of brought us to that point. I totally admire the kind of the optimism and the drive and the commitment from the board of the BSPA to make some sort of Speedway happen. I think it's great that they're happening, and as I said, not everyone's situation is the same as ours. If you take some of the other stadiums that we visit, the stadiums are massive. You take 𝗲𝗲𝗁𝗲, massive space right around the whole track. You can pretty much stand, and you could achieve social distancing there fairly easily. But for us, our stadium, it's tight. Even the walkway, the toilets, the den, it just would be very, very difficult to achieve that, and thereafter to police it. So as I said, every stadium's different. Every club circumstances are different. But for us, making a decision for Glasgow, those are kind of the reasons we came to that decision.
And if I might highlight, Peter, presumably it was a bit of a body blow to your contracted riders at that point.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I've obviously been speaking to the guys, and it's difficult for them. At the end of the day, they're the ones that make a living from Speedway, so it's very difficult for them, because that is their source of income. But I think even then, some of them just thought this isn't going to happen, or it's not going to it's not going to, a meaningful season's not going to happen. So, you know, I obviously spoke to a lot of them, and, you know, Connor was in a difficult position because at the time Connor was in Australia. He was still renting a flat in Glasgow, so he was paying for accommodation in Australia and in Glasgow, and saying to me, you know, what's going to happen? Am I going to be called back? Am I not? Because I don't know whether to give up the flat in Glasgow or not. And that was the other reason, really, just to say, well, that's not really fair. So I just said to Connor, listen, even before we put the statement out, I think it's unlikely. If I were you, I'd give up the flat in Glasgow, and if that means you can't come back, then don't worry about it. You'll still have a place in our team the following year, and we'll use someone else if we choose to run. So yeah, no, I think they all understood our decision and the reasons for it.
And Peter, without naming names, of course, I wouldn't expect you to, but amongst other clubs, you know, in terms of the dialogue that was happening March, April time, even into May, would Glasgow on a limit at that point, were they isolated in terms of their view versus other clubs?
I mean, I don't personally talk to a lot of the other clubs, to be honest with you, Derek. Talk to it's kind of Alan that mostly does that. I think, from what I understand, I think there were several people who had their doubts that it was going to happen. Who still have their doubts it was going to happen, I suppose, for the various reasons that we set out, similar reasons to ours. So, and I think it almost becomes more difficult now on the back of, you know, Boris's most recent statement about crowds going back in October. So I think that makes it even more difficult. But, you know, hopefully they can, if the clubs want to go ahead, they can do it, and they can get something happening. If that's what they want to do, and they get a crowd, because I think the worst thing that could happen is if we did start and then, you know, crowds didn't come, and then clubs thought, well, wait a minute, and either wanted to back out at that point or whatever. But hopefully they wouldn't. Once they're committed, hopefully they would be in for the long haul. So we'll just need to wait and see. We just need, time will tell whether there is any season. And you know, I would go. I'll be honest with you. You know, I don't think I'm particularly at risk. I'm relatively young and fit. You know, if Berwick was to run and Edinburgh were to run, I would go and watch myself. I've got nothing against anyone that runs Speedway. But just for us with the stadium and the reasons why, and at the time, you know, leaving people in limbo with that decision, it was just the right decision for us to make. And, you know, we definitely stand by that decision, even more so now with what we know now that we did when the statement came out.
We're going to pick up some questions that come in from TigersPLUS members, and put those to you in just a minute. But, you know, 6, 7, 8 weeks on from that club statement back at the beginning of June, Peter, do you have any regrets? Do you have any thoughts that just maybe Glasgow made that decision, that position just too soon?
Absolutely not. 100% not. If anything, I think it's been proven that we made the right decision, given the timeline that Scotland's been on, especially, and the fact that, you know, obviously it's quite concerning that there's kind of second waves almost popping up around the UK, and some cities are going into lockdown. I don't think that'll be the end of it, you know, local lockdowns. So I think it was the right decision, and I absolutely stand by that decision. And the other thing is, you know, October in Glasgow is not the bonniest, as you know. You know, it can be freezing, it can be wet, and to try and squeeze a short season in between August and October, and then with the rain-offs we would undoubtedly get, it just wasn't hugely appealing, I'll be honest.
Okay, thanks Peter. Listen, let's pick up some questions that came in from TigersPLUS members. The first one from Elaine Colton, and Elaine asks, what plans has the club management made to keep their fans entertained during the lockdown period and into the 2021 season?
Well, I'll be honest, it's been a challenge because we're slightly different. Other clubs, I think, in most cases will use volunteers. We've got a paid employee, 𝗍𝗲𝗿𝗲𝗍𝗲, who kind of does dual code. So he does some marketing for one of Allied's brands, and he also does the marketing for Glasgow Tigers. The area that he does for Allied is one of the areas that's dead at the moment. So Robert's been on furlough since the end of March, and anyone that knows, in furlough you're not allowed to work. So any social media activity that we've been doing has been me trying to fit it in around everything else in Allied, to be honest with you. So you know, there's no point in bringing Robert back when he doesn't have much to do in the Allied side, and when there's not much point in spending a lot of money marketing Speedway when ultimately we'll be operating Speedway until probably March at the earliest next year. So So that's why there's not been a huge amount of activity. Robert will likely be back at work end of October, beginning of November at the latest. So hopefully we'll see some more activity ramp up at that point. But as I say, we're not, some of the stuff we do on Facebook and stuff, we put a bit of money behind those posts, but it would only make sense to do that if you're actually running Speedway, because what you don't want to do is entice someone's interest in it and then they Google it or whatever and say, right, that sounds great, when can I go and watch it? And then find out that we're not going to be able to come and watch it until April next year, likely. So that's why we've not had a huge amount of activity amongst maybe what you've seen some of the other clubs do and reruns and that sort of thing. So it's just been me trying to do a bit when I get a chance, to be honest with you.
That makes sense, Peter. Thanks for taking that question. Next one from 𝗍𝗲𝗲𝗏. Were you a fan before the Facenna family took over Glasgow Speedway?
Was I a fan? I'd been a few times. So the very first time I went to Shawfield actually back in the day. I don't know how long ago that was, a long time ago when I was a kid. And I always remember this rider, you probably know his name, I don't even know his name, who was all in black. The guy didn't seem to have any sponsors logo or anything like that.
This would be 𝗍𝗲𝗏𝗏, if I'm not mistaken.
Actually, when I was a kid, and I always remember that, funnily enough. But I'd subsequently found out it was actually ranked rotten. Is that right? Is that fair?
He didn't think so.
Really not. But it was one of my memories. So I went to Speedway back then, and then obviously over the years when I've been at Allied, we've kind of sponsored Speedway on and off. So I remember going to, I can't even remember what it's probably, I don't know what it was, Scottish Cup maybe or something in 2003, and I've got a picture of me on George Stansell's bike back then. So I kind of dabbled in and out. But no, I wouldn't say I was a fan of Speedway. I didn't follow it or anything like that. I just went along a couple of times with sponsorship or whatever we were doing.
Clearly older than you look, Peter Facenna. A question from Fraser Galloway, and a kind of topical question. With face masks now widely in use, have the club considered selling Glasgow Tigers brand masks?
Well, funnily enough, at the very start of this, obviously we've had a long-standing relationship with iSpeed that a lot of the clubs use now, and Robert actually got one done up and sent it to me. But at the time he did it, it was so early, it was almost kind of taboo because loads of people were dying at that point. And he said, "Do you want to do some of this?" I went, "No, let's just not go there just now." But yeah, once Robert's back, if people want Glasgow Tigers face masks, then yeah, we can get some done.
Here's some other questions from Paul Colton. If some of our 2020 side take part in whatever season can yet be staged this year, will that potentially affect their position with us for 2021? And actually, a similar question from Dan McShane. If other clubs are getting the opportunity to race this year and riders potentially increase their averages, what's the chances of our team changing next season?
So, what's going to happen in the averages, as I understand it, is that any season that does take place this year will not impact the averages, so they'll almost be reset to what they are today. They'll be reset at the averages they finished on last year, regardless of what sort of season takes place this year. I still think there's huge question marks personally whether any season will take place, but assuming it does and the riders ride, I've said to all our riders that we want to start with the same team next year. We wanted to do it this year, so as far as I'm concerned, it'll be the same 1 to 7 we'll have next year.
And I think that will be music to supporters here, certainly around Glasgow, because there was, as Paul Colton highlighted, there was some confidence in the squad that we put together for 2020. An interesting mix of youth and experience, and we look forward to testing our strengths against the best in the championship, Peter.
Yeah.
And a question from Chris Malcolm finally. Next season, beyond silverware, what are your short, medium and long-term goals for Speedway in Glasgow? Here's a question.
Big question, isn't it? I don't know if I'll cover short, long, but I mean, our goals are just pretty much the same, to be successful on and off the track, to continue our quest to get more and more people into Speedway. We make no secret that we lose a bit of money. That what we lose has been reducing over the years, which is great. And that's just about getting more bums and seats. So everything that we can do on and off the track to get more people to come and watch Glasgow Speedway, but not just about Glasgow Speedway. For us, it's about growing Speedway as a sport. Anything that we can do to help grow the sport as well, we're all for. So, it's about that. It's to kind of try and recapture the bond that we had last year, to see if we can start the season again with that bond. Obviously, some of the personnel's changed in the team, But that was really special for us as well. So, and yeah, just to be successful and to continue to grow the fan base, I guess is the main thing.
Thank you, Peter, and thanks to those TigersPLUS members for firing in some questions for Peter. Much appreciated. Peter, I'm not sure there's much more we can say about 2020. There may yet be a chapter to be written, of course, and hopefully yet the chance to see some action somewhere. Let's turn attention to 2021. It is something that you touched on earlier, which struck a chord, because it's something I've been conscious of. We're pinning our hopes on being able to start in March, April time next year, as we would normally do. But the world's a different place, and in the absence of vaccines and successful treatments and things, there must still be a little question mark over the ability to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's going up in the air, I suppose, and everyone's talking about what comes in February and January and February. Is there going to be a second wave there with the cold weather and all the rest of it? I don't know. It's very difficult to say. Clearly the hope is for everyone, not just Speedway related, that we do get through this and there isn't a second wave, and life can get back to some sense of normality fairly soon, and that we can have crowds at spectators at sports and volume. So I guess we just need to wait and see.
Well, listen, let's talk positively. We're coming towards the end of our conversation. Let's talk positively and look forward to 2021. And a couple of things I wanted to ask you about, away from Glasgow Speedway or the core Glasgow Speedway, is Allied Mobility's continued sponsorship of Team GB, something that you renewed this year and seem quite keen to maintain.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think Rob and Vicky are doing a fantastic job. It's great to see the kind of professionalism that they're bringing to the national team, and I don't think we'll be that far away from being on the top step. It's just a shame the last couple of years that we weren't able to hold the test match, which is kind of part of our deal with Speedway Great Britain, if you like, over and above just the sponsorship, just for the various reasons. Last year it was trying to fit it in amongst, trying to get all our fixtures done, to be honest with you, and then rider availability as well, because we want to, when we do a test match, we really want to field a strong team. And then obviously this year it didn't happen for the reasons we've talked about. So yeah, no, it's an important partnership. I think that they're doing a really good job, and it's great to see focus on the youth as well, and the young guys coming through and supporting them with not just the stuff on the track, the stuff off the track as well, in terms of the nutrition and health and fitness and all that sort of stuff that other sports have had for years, that it's good to see being brought to Speedway.
I think, Peter, when the fixture list was published earlier this year, the two standout fixtures for me, there was talk in April, if I remember correctly, of a test match, which you've touched on. There was also a Grand Prix qualifier, again, coming to Glasgow. Have you been in discussions with the FIM about hopefully plugging that gap come 2021?
We are, and again, thanks to Rob as well, that kind of keeps us in the loop with that stuff as well. So no, absolutely. Each time the FIM has been at an event at Glasgow, they've always raved about it in terms of the facilities and how well they were looked after and how kind of smoothly it's ran. So I think they're big fans of Glasgow, and hopefully we'll have other big events coming our way soon.
Do you find, Peter, just a question, I know you're not a promoter and you don't directly have conversations with BSPA at their forums, but do you sense within the sport that there's room and acceptance for clubs or individuals to put forward ideas, suggestions, strategies for the better good of the sport, and are these listened to?
That's a good question. I mean, again, I tend to kind of stay out of the politics of the sport and the rule changes and all that sort of stuff. I leave Alan to deal with that. I guess the thing is that the one common thing that everyone's got is that we want the sport to thrive, and everyone, whether you're a fan, a supporter, a promoter, or an owner, has got that one common theme. So anything that anyone can suggest, I think, should absolutely be heard, because nobody's got a monopoly on all the good ideas ultimately. And if there's people out there that have got good ideas about how we could grow the sport or promote the sport, then let's hear them. But you can't question the passion that the BSPA board have got for the sport. People like Stuart and they're cut them in half at Speedway, so they've certainly got the sport's best interests at heart.
So a difficult 2020 for all of us, not just when we think about Speedway. You know, even Poland beginning to have some troubles. It's now down to COVID. Hopefully all of that can be eradicated and absolutely under control come 2021, and we can all positively, Peter, look forward to another bright new season of Speedway here in the UK, and something, of course, that is there a hope that there might be a bit of a bounce back in terms of appeal to supporters come next year? Because there must be a lot of people who used to go, sometimes go, or regularly go, who are desperate to go and see some track action.
Yeah, hopefully. You know, I think there will be a lot of people that have missed it, and, you know, missed the smell and, you know, what you see and everything else, and missed their kind of second family, if you like. You know, a lot of fans go because it's people that they don't see regularly, that are their friends as well, and in some cases lifelong friends with the length of time a lot of people have been going. So hopefully there will be a bit of kind of pent up demand there, if you like, and that, you know, people will get behind it when we start again next year.
Peter Facenna, thanks for your time. Thanks for allowing us to grill you a little bit over Speedway. Perhaps between now and 2021 season, we can get you back on and have another chat in a bit more positive terms, because we hopefully by then we'll be looking forward to a tangible season ahead of us.
No worries. I'll just hope everyone keeps well and stays safe, and we'll see you soon, hopefully. Cheers.
Thank you everyone for looking in on Behind the Tapes. Keep in touch. Craig Cook, Steve Lawson interviews coming soon. Take care everyone.